Let's switch gears. Breaking news coming out of college football as Washington State, Oregon State, they find themselves with a brand new partner. Ladies and gentlemen, from JohnCanzano.com. You can follow him on Twitter, JohnCanzanoBFT. You can listen to the guy on his radio show, 750, down there in Portland, Oregon. Did I mention JohnCanzano.com? Yeah, you can read him there. Ladies and gentlemen, it's John Canzano, his weekly appearance, all brought to you by Zeke's Pizza. Visit Zeke'sPizza.com. Johnny Can, sorry that we're just a little bit late. But, man, you had it early this morning, and it's a done deal. The Zags are coming to the Pac-12. How'd this happen? How did it all work out that Gonzaga's joining the conference?
I've told that the two sides have been talking for some time, and, you know, we had seen some smoke out there about it, and but those discussions really ramped up over the weekend and into Monday. Gonzaga informed WCC Commissioner Stu Jackson. The president at Gonzaga called the commissioner of the WCC at 10 o'clock on Monday night and said, hey, we're leaving for the Pac-12 conference. I don't think it was a shocker to Stu Jackson. You know, they had been sort of bracing for this. WCC did some expansion itself. But the Gonzaga addition to the Pac-12, I mean, Puck, come on, I don't have to tell you what it means. You're right here in the Pacific Northwest. You know that this is a tentpole basketball move, a blue-chip university, a real premium addition to the Pac-12. It sort of demonstrates how picky and selective the Pac-12 has been. It underscores the idea because, you know, I think we wondered after they took that first bite of expansion by taking those four schools out of the Mountain West Conference, you know, did they make a mistake in not grabbing UNLV and Utah State in that first fight? Did they make a mistake and misplay their hand with Memphis? This kind of shows you that, no, they got what they wanted in that first fight with the Mountain West. And then they went shopping in the American Athletic Conference, and maybe they didn't get the price that they wanted, the value that they wanted on Memphis and others. And so it shows them not just grabbing anybody, any place, any time to try to fill out the roster. It really does show how selective and picky they're being, and I think that's worth noting here. But clearly, major victory for a conference that has done so much wrong in the last 2 years. Like this, This was not bad leadership. This was not misjudging your media rights. This was a very focused, prudent, smart move by the Pac-12.
I'm going to do some on-air producing. Will you turn your volume up?
Volume's going up. Yes, sorry. You tell me. Am I low?
You were just a little low.
A little low?
Yeah, a little low.
Am I better?
A little higher. A little higher.
How about now?
Yeah, give it a little bit. Give it a little bit more, John. Come on, give it to me.
How about now?
There we go.
Are we all the way up? I am all the way up.
Okay, there you go.
That's as hot as it can get over here.
Well, you're hot.
Yeah.
You're hot. You're hot. You're hot now. You look hot.
Thank you.
You sound hot.
Thank you.
And your reporting is hot.
Thank you, man.
Here's the deal that you know, when everybody was hand-wringing, you know, last week when, you know, everyone's writing the same thing. Oh, the Pac-12, they misplayed their hand and it's all falling apart. And, you know, they didn't do a good job at this realignment. And I remember just talking to a few people off the ledge, you know, some Cougar fans just saying, just wait a minute. What if they get Gonzaga and they bring them into the conference and then they figure out eventually another team for football? How does that sound to you? Okay. And then that's exactly what happened. To me, I'll figure out the eighth team, John. Having Gonzaga a part of this conference for basketball is a much bigger deal and brand than having UNLV in the conference.
Yes. And it's going to attract others, right? I mean, who else out there is restless right now? Who else out there is thinking about possibly joining the Pac-12? Because I think, you know, that question needs to be asked. You know, Gonzaga clearly restless in the WCC, no home for them in the Big 12. They didn't see what they liked there. But there's a regional feel to this thing, too, that makes me kind of wonder, like, you don't go outside that Western footprint unless it's a no-brainer addition that adds some real value in football. And so keep an eye on what comes next.
What will come next? I mean, the teams out there don't really excite me. You've heard rumors of Texas State. You've heard rumors of Sacramento State. Where do they turn their attention to when it comes to football now?
Look, I tweeted out that, Grand Canyon is someone that they want to talk with. It's on their list. Let's talk to Grand Canyon University. They are, again, another basketball edition, but they don't bring anything in the football world. And I was told to pump the brakes a little bit on talking about that, like, it was on their wish list, so to speak. Might just be someone that they're interested in talking with at the right number. So that kind of tells me if they are talking with Grand Canyon, they're not far down the road with Grand Canyon. But they still need a football member, Puck. And so, the initial salvo that they made with those American schools, including Memphis, does Memphis and its great basketball pedigree want to be part of what's happening, this basketball renaissance that's happening in the western part of the United States? That would be a better addition. And then I think you have to start to ask yourself, are there members in the ACC or members in the Big 12 or members elsewhere that are just a little restless? Now, I think it's a little bit of a reach to say that, like, they would leave a Power 4 conference for the Pac-12. But if they could get the right combinations of schools to leave, could the Pac-12 then position itself as, hey, this should be a Power 5 again? That has to be part of the thinking if you're the Pac-12 conference. But I'm hearing lean. I'm hearing selective. I'm watching what they're doing. They're not just going to take anybody, Puck. It's going to be no-brainer additions, and they got one today.
Yeah, it's a great addition. I mean, it just really is. You start looking at that conference, and I just don't know how anyone can't be excited for what they added today. I mean, you add Gonzaga with the likes of San Diego State, who was, I mean, these are two teams that were in the Final Four. Was it a couple of years ago? They're both in the Final Four. Boise State's had a great basketball program with Leon Rice. Colorado State's always been very good at basketball. Washington State, obviously, in the last few years with Kyle Smith. Oregon State, has been relevant. It's a good conference. And, and you noted this before in the last visits with us about how TV executives are paying more attention to basketball.
Yes. And that basketball tournament, is due for a little bit of an expansion and a renegotiation of the TV contract. And so I think with a straight face, the Pac-12, like when you look at the KenPom rating of this conference as it stands with these members that have as far as the membership is today, it's got a higher KenPom rating than the ACC.
Yeah,
it has
crazy.
An average of 4.7 NCAA tournament bids in the last 3 years. So we're talking about a 4-bid, maybe a 5-bid league as it stands. I'm really expecting like Washington State and Oregon State, who started this thing. And here's another point, Puck. Everybody said the Pac-12 was dead. All these outsiders, people east of the Rockies who do not understand the brand of the Pac-12 in 108 years, that it was dead, it's abandoned, just accept relegation. Oregon State and Washington State said, hold a second. We think there's value in the brand. They have proven that by adding the top of the Mountain West, who obviously saw value in the brand, adding Gonzaga, who saw value in the brand. These schools aren't just running to a make-believe thing. They're running towards a brand. But I think with a straight face, you can say, look, this is a 4 or 5 bid conference in the NCAA tournament. Could they get bigger media rights negotiations as it pertains to the college football playoff? We shall see. Big Ten and SEC trying to run away with it, but clearly the brand matters here in the Pac-12. It's just it's a no-brainer win for a conference that badly needed one.
Yeah. Is there anything with the conference? Is there anything looking ahead? What is, and if you said this already, I apologize, right? Sometimes I mishearing things. The odds, did UNLV and like Memphis sign anything that completely 100% binds them to the AAC and then the Mountain West?
The language I heard with UNLV and the language I saw was, sort of a letter of understanding. I did not see signed a contract that binds them. And of course, the media rights deal is what binds any school. So I have to think UNLV is maybe doing some deep thinking here, because the Mountain West, I got to give Gloria Navarez credit. Like, she's doing everything she could possibly do to hold her conference together. She's trying to not be George Kliavkoff. I got to give her credit there. But adding UTEP as a member is not like adding Gonzaga, right? It's a real defensive maneuver to try to get to 8 members. It's not proactive. It's not forward thinking. And so I think, UNLV has got to be asking itself, has it made the right decision in staying in the Mountain West? And then further, my understanding of the offer that was made to Memphis and Tulane and others, like the Pac-12, presented terms to those schools. They very quickly then pivoted and said, we're in solidarity. They obviously didn't think that the terms were no-brainers. But the athletic director at Memphis has since come out and said, this wasn't a good deal, but, we're listening. And so I don't think anything is done until it's done. We learned that in the last round of realignment. I also think Washington State and Oregon State have to be looking over at San Diego State, Gonzaga, and what they've added and going, oh, crap, we need to start investing in basketball, because I think you're going to need to see a ramp up. And if the donors and the boosters at Washington State and Oregon State aren't excited about, buying in on basketball, they should get there very quickly. I expect both of those schools to go, hey, we need to raise some funds and we need to start investing in basketball.
Let's move on to some of the before we move on to what happened in this past weekend of college football. When what is a timeline, do you think, for another edition? Do you think it's going to be a while? They're going to let this thing play out, see what they can get in a media rights deal, or how long do you think this time frame is for them adding another team, another football only team?
Keep in mind, I was told last week, and I think we talked about it, there was a cascading order of offers that they were, they had parallel plans here that were, hey, we're going to go after Memphis and Tulane. They didn't get them. They pivoted back, said, okay, can we pick up UNLV? Didn't get them. The move then became, all right, let's bring Gonzaga into the fold. And, there was discussions that were ongoing. So I think they've already had conversations with whoever else that they are serious about targeting. They could go to market with their media rights and include some escalators in that deal. That's one thing that has been floated out there, and then you have some concrete numbers to show a Memphis, to show UNLV, to show someone else if you've got other targets that are out there. But Puck, they can't sit around. They've got 22 months to become an 8-member conference. They still need one school that's going to play all sports. Gonzaga doesn't fulfill that requirement. It's just a great addition. And so I think that they have to do this sooner rather than later, because it's not like they have 22 months to add the school, then go to market. No, they've got to get to market quickly. So either they go to market and they add the escalators in and they tell the TV companies, what will you pay for Memphis? What will you pay for UNLV? What will you pay for school X that's out there that is our pipe dream school? I am told that getting Cal or Stanford out of the ACC would require, an implosion of that conference. They are tied into a grant of rights, but gosh, Cal seems like the more likely target to me if you're going to go after one of those, because, they are getting, a media rights distribution that is anemic compared to the rest of that conference. That it's just a lifeboat for now for them. But I think the timeline, Puck, to answer your question, is sooner rather than later. I will not be surprised if we get news within the next week about that final piece, because, that if they can bring that piece into the fold, then go to market, they're in a stronger position of leverage with those TV companies. But they clearly have what they can, with a straight face right now, say is the 5th best conference in college athletics. And I think that was their objective. Now they need a football piece.
All right, let's go to the field. Let's go back to Friday. What happened in New Jersey, Rutgers, in Washington? What do you chalk this up to right now? Is Washington in trouble, or just the growing pains of a new system and a new head coach?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I think you have to be concerned if you're a Husky fan, because you're joining a conference where you're now climbing over Michigan and Ohio State and Oregon and USC, and that's a different rebuild, even if we're talking about a rebuild. It's not the same rebuild that existed in the Pac-12 when you were kind of trying to rebound out of the Tyrone Willingham situation and rebuild, right? Like, you only needed to get over USC and Oregon and maybe not Utah to get to the top. It's a steeper climb in the Big Ten Conference. And so I think there were concerns there. I also want to chalk a little bit of that up to, short week going east. We've seen teams from the Pacific time zone struggle with those games. Now, a week earlier, Stanford went and beat Syracuse under similar conditions. So let's not go too far with it. But I think it was a little bit of both things. Washington hasn't looked great. They've looked a little weak in spots. I think it's going to be a tough later part of the season. So if you're a Husky fan, you better hope that, in the next few weeks, Washington can find a win or two.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a rough stretch for them. I mean, they don't. How much do you think the Michigan game is for them is a must win?
Yeah.
To me, I think it's a huge must win for them.
It's a huge game. I don't want to say must win because I don't think anybody's expecting Washington to get to the playoff. But, you look later in the season, there just aren't any wins down the stretch for Washington. And Rutgers is better than they've been in recent years. Let's not go too far with it. But I am left kind of thinking about this season in Washington and thinking, I understand why Husky fans were down about Kalen DeBoer leaving for Alabama. You lost all momentum, and now you're trying to get it back amid an obstacle course that is going to punch you in the face every week.
Yeah, and then I think you watch what happens on Friday, right? A team that is undisciplined, makes a lot of penalties, makes a lot of stupid plays. You lose a game in which you should have beat that team, and then the next night you watch your former coach, for a half or three quarters of a football game, just completely dismantle a Georgia football team. And I know Georgia came back, but again, Kalen DeBoer, and his record is just stupid, what he's doing against these teams. But I think it's just if you're a Husky fan, it's just a hard pill to swallow to watch him go off on that national stage and have the game that he had.
Yeah, and, Washington fans, Kalen DeBoer has won everywhere that he's went. Jedd Fisch, he's had success in rebuilding things. But if you're Washington, if you're thinking about the long view here, you already have to start thinking about what's coming after Jedd Fisch, win or lose, right? If he isn't able to get traction, you have to be in position for what's next. And if he is able to get traction, he's likely leaving and going somewhere else. So I think if you're a Washington fan, you already have to be thinking about Jedd Fisch as a stopgap, even before he's coached a game. And now you have, sort of a underwhelming start to your season. You lose the Apple Cup. You go to Rutgers and lose. You look at your schedule and you start to go, okay, is this a 4 or 5 win season? What is out there for Washington? But really not positive trajectory at all.
We got Oregon State. Excuse me, we got Oregon and Michigan State, right? Now, to be honest, have you talked to Beaver fans?
Yes.
Are they rooting for Oregon this week?
Yeah, they have mixed feelings. I don't think they're going to the stadium. I don't think they're going to put on green, but I think they are going to yell and shout at their TVs in the living room and be angry. And I think they're going to be pleasantly entertained if Oregon boat races Michigan State. Conversely, I think Oregon's a little worried about this game. It's a little bit of a trap. You got Ohio State coming on October 12th. All the focus on that game. Short week. They did not practice Sunday because they got back at 2 o'clock in the morning. By the way, Washington got back at 4 o'clock in the morning, landed at 3:48 a.m., returning from Rutgers. This is part of the deal now. Oregon left late because they had to kick off at 8 o'clock, and they finished that game against UCLA. They don't depart the Burbank airport till 2 a.m. They land at 3 something. And so here comes Michigan State on a short week. You didn't practice Sunday. You're not going to really practice on Thursday because you have a Friday game. It's a walkthrough. And so you're on 3 days of practice against Jonathan Smith, who kind of has Dan Lanning's number 2 years ago. At least he beat him with a team that wasn't as good. And so I don't think Michigan State can win this game, but I think it's a little bit of a trap. And wouldn't be surprised maybe if Oregon doesn't play their best game, but that's not what Beaver fans want to hear. To answer your question, Beaver fans want justice. They would like to see Jonathan Smith and Michigan State lose badly.
Yeah, but I mean, it's got to be a trap. I mean, it's clearly a trap game for, we talked about the trap game, with Washington State, when they were facing San Jose State, after the Apple Cup. It's a trap game for them because they've got Ohio State on the horizon.
Yeah, a lot of emotion, and just a lot of emotion. And you'll love this. I mean, I talked to Jonathan Smith in Indianapolis. I think he kind of put it to rest. He was looking for any port in the storm. He had, his agents telling him, get to the Big Ten. This is an offer. I think if he had been more patient, he probably ends up at Washington or UCLA. Let's be real. But,
sure.
He the goodwill thing, he always dropped his gear at goodwill. He tried to explain it all away. But there's just bad feelings. There's just bad feelings there. And I invited him on my show this week. I don't think he's going to come on saying it's a short week. They got a tight schedule. I got to wash my hair, all that stuff. But I think, in the end, it's just, Oregon may put this thing to rest for Oregon State fans in some weird bit of poetic justice.
Yeah. Speaking of Washington State, they go into Boise State, and John, I got choked up thinking about the game. It was a hell of a football game. It was a hell of an environment. It was great to see. I think it's got a chance to be a real great budding rivalry. I think between those two. I love the name for it, the Snake River Shootout. It's great. All the images that went along with it, and Boise State strikes first, and they handled them. At times. It was a game in the second half and a play here, a play there. They had no answer for Ashton Jeanty. That is without a doubt the best running back in the country. And the Cougs, they just nothing. They couldn't tackle him. They couldn't do anything against him.
He's jumping over people. He is outrunning people, diving at the goal line with two guys hanging on his back. He looked like Barry Sanders. That's who he reminds me of when you see him run. He's got some Barry Sanders in his game, and he is not – one guy's not tackling him. They bounce off him. He runs through tackles. You can't arm tackle that guy. I think he's a Heisman candidate. He's not going to get a lot of love nationally. People are going to kind of politely include him. But if I had to put my ballot out today, is there anybody who's been a more impactful player in the country than Ashton Jeanty's been? I think he right now would be at the top of my Heisman ballot, along with Travis Hunter at Colorado. Apologies to the East Coast voters, but I think those two players have done more for their teams. But Boise State's got to get to the playoff for him to be, end up at the downtown athletic club. And they look physically at the line of scrimmage like a playoff team. They could not just make it there, Puck, but I kind of wonder, would they be a 12 seed, or could they arrive the way they played Oregon? Could they arrive as an 11 or a 10? Could they win a game? Like Boise State, the way they're playing starts to make you think about that. They still have to go to UNLV and win, but it's that kind of season, I think, for Boise State. And, the Pac-12's got to be looking back saying, hey, this might be the best story that the conference has going. It's got a team that looks like a playoff team.
What did you make of College Game Day's decision to go to Cal?
I think they knew if they were ever going to go to Berkeley, it was going to be now. And I think all the people in Berkeley with their hula hoops and their bubbles and their patchouli oil are all excited to come out at 6 o'clock in the morning. I cannot wait to see how Berkeley shows up for College Game Day.
Can they get some hobos out there and stuff?
Is Pat McAfee going to smoke marijuana on College Game Day? I don't know. We're going to find out.
Where they should do Game Day.
Telegraph
They should do it from Tightwad Hill.
Tightwad Hill, yeah.
They should. Have you ever been up there?
I have not been up there, but I have looked.
It's amazing.
You've done it? You've gone up there?
Yeah. I took my kid there. We went when the Cougs played Cal, I don't know, it was like 4 years ago. I'm like, well, I've got to see this.
Maybe they'll send Lee Corso up to Tightwad Hill, and they'll do kind of a remote, like, Lee, what's the scene up there?
It's awesome. Jim, John, they've got Barb. Well, Jim. I got Jim on my mind, and now I got John. Jim.
Obsessed with him.
Yeah, there's guys up there with like lazy boy chairs, a TV. There's a barbecue up there. It's amazing, and it's a great view too.
And look, Mario Cristobal has struggled in Berkeley. You look historically, he went there with an Oregon team that was really good and lost. Like Cal has given Mario Cristobal problems. You know why? Justin Wilcox. He's a really good game coach. He adjusts well, and he sort of does the things that Mario Cristobal doesn't do on the other side of the ball. The way that Cristobal coaches very conservatively, wants to beat you like 24-13, that kind of game, isn't there to try to put 40 or 50 on you. The chokehold that he's had his teams in historically, a little bit of that has come off this season, but it plays to Justin Wilcox's strength. Like, he can win that kind of game. Cal can be in that kind of game. Now, I'm not saying Cal's going to win. They're going to upset, but it's just explains why Justin Wilcox has given Mario Cristobal problems. He is a really good coach.
Yeah, it has experience obviously the last couple of years with Cam Ward. I went back and looked at it. Cam has had 2 really good games against him. Has had some turnovers, but has had good games against him. And Cam Ward has just been fabulous this year for Miami.
Yes.
It's like I did not think he would be like this. I really didn't. I thought they haven't really played many. They haven't played much competition yet, and I thought Cristobal would neuter him. But so far, so good. He has been unbelievable.
He looks better. Give it some time. Let's let him see. We're still figuring out who's good, aren't we? We're still figuring out who's good, who's not good. I think Oregon's better than we thought maybe a couple weeks ago, because their wins over Idaho and Boise State now look a lot better, right? And Oregon State plays Purdue very well. Purdue is in a 0-0 game with Nebraska at halftime. Now I'm going, well, maybe Oregon State's a little better than we thought they were. Could they win 9 or 10? And so, I think we're still figuring all of this out. But I think Game Day knew, Puck, if they were ever going to Berkeley, this was it. There wasn't another high-profile game that was clearly better. And you've got a Cal team that, even though it lost to Florida State, kind of embarrassing, but even though it lost to Florida State, could hold its head high. And then Cristobal going in there, it's a good storyline. Like, he just, for whatever reason, and I think it's Wilcox, I think Cristobal's had problems with Cal.
Yeah. Real quick, just a note for you. CW, which I think has been okay, what I've watched, but they need to get rid of Michael Mothershed. That needs to end now. They need to find a better official that can actually talk.
Yeah.
And makes sense on the broadcast.
There are some production things that you see them working out. You can see it. It looks like, they are just starting to do football. And there's little things that pop up when they bring in their official or even just some of the graphics.
That's fine.
Stuff.
They just find a better person that they can go to the rules to get like an update on the rules. I mean, I've watched him like 4 different times now, and like every time he's like, "Oh, that's gonna be clearly a fumble." And then like right when he's saying that, no, it's not a fumble. Like he's never right about anything.
I don't think they necessarily should go to that shot. I think the Big Ten does a really good job with this, Puck. They show their command center, right? They go there, they show the command center. It looks very official. The whole design of that let's check with our expert is to try to reinforce the confidence that you have in the officiating itself. Mothershed's not doing that. He's doing the opposite of that. It's like going to somebody's dad in the living room who has a general idea of what is happening with the football game and kind of knows the rules, but it's been no more accurate than you or I in the press box going, what do you think?
He's just not good. He's not built for the TV. All right. John Canzano's Weekly Visit brought to you by Zeke's Pizza, best selection of pizzas and local Northwest craft beers. Visit Zeke'sPizza.com. Follow John on Twitter, John Canzano BFT. Read all of his work, JohnCanzano.com. The radio show, The Bald Faced Truth, down in Portland at 7:50. The Game. In case you missed it, will be up on YouTube. You can listen later, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast, of course, up at pucksports.com. John, you're the best. We'll wrap next week. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jim.
Oh, you son of a gun.